am about to glaze Starfield. People may call me a Bethesda shill, and that's okay, because I want to express why I was wrong about this game. Starfield is a misunderstood, brilliant example of sci-fi character-driven RPGs. It was sadly and poorly maligned for a technical limitation that, while tragic, is completely impossible to reconcile with modern game engines. And underneath that criticism of the lack of seamless takeoff, what the game does achieve is create one of the best stories Bethesda has ever told. Why? Because Starfield has a hidden story beneath its carefully constructed lore that tells an amazing and emotional journey through space-time. First, some quick real-world context. Starfield was bashed at release for some real criticisms. Todd's massaging the truth didn't help. What we imagined was a game that would let you take off from any planet and fly to another seamlessly, closer to No Man's Sky, when what we got was a menu and a loading screen. People were big mad, to say the least, but let me tell you why this problem will persist in every space game no matter what genre. Because this isn't a creation engine problem, it's a relativistic simulation problem. Basically, for the last 40 to 50 years, we've been telling video games, up is down. When Mario jumps up, he must fall down. This fundamental reality of up and down motivated decades and decades of video game development. Over the course of this half-century, down is always down, up is always up. Mario must always come down after going up. So we've called gravity absolute in games for 50 years, and now that we can simulate more complex models of space, we've hit a problem. It's not just a Starfield problem, it's in every game to simulate celestial scales of objects will hit this limit problem. Here's what pissed people off about Starfield the most. We imagined seamless, get in your ship and take off into space from atmosphere. Like No Man's Sky, people said. If No Man's Sky can do it, why can't Starfield? And here's what people must understand. Even No Man's Sky cannot do this truly. It fakes it. Because the loading screen is still there, it's just tiny and imperceivable so you don't notice it. But it is there. The loading screen between atmospheric flight and space is when you teleport into your ship. In No Man's Sky, you don't get into your ship, you transform into it. Then when you transform, you get a small loading screen where you go from avatar in a body to being the ship itself with different physics telling you to obey different rules. Since no animation occurs of an avatar entering an object, this is much easier to simulate than what we desire, which is a game that would let you enter relativistic gravity at scale the way the universe really does. So even No Man's Sky fakes this by making the loading screen tiny so you don't notice it. Starfield's loading screen from atmosphere to space was unfortunately just too long, and our senses noticed it. That is this game's ultimate crime in the eyes of the public. It failed to deliver seamless spaceflight from atmosphere to orbit. But even No Man's Sky cannot achieve this, because even it creates hidden floors for up and down to obey even when in EVA space. So since a hidden horizon always exists, even in No Man's Sky, where clouds and atmospheric rendering hide the illusion very well, it is still just an illusion. Up is still up, and down is still down, irrespective of what our perception of it says. Why? I'm neither a physicist nor games designer, but the problem as I understand is we can't simulate relativistic gravity at scale, because no game engine has solved for how to keep an object in relativistic motion while enforcing gravity universally towards mass, and not because programming says the floor is down. So basically, your problem is one of game engine limits, not the creation engine specifically. Starfield, as we desired, is impossible with current engines. You'd need to build a proprietary engine to achieve what is desired of seamless atmosphere to orbit spaceflight. Thus, we could say No Man's Sky did not achieve true relativistic gravitation because the game fakes the atmosphere to space takeoff by turning it into a loading screen you can move around in. A brilliant solution to an eternal problem, but still an illusory stopgap. The reality is, true relativistic simulation remains a dream as of the 2020s. So, if seamless spaceflight is currently impossible, why do I love Starfield so much despite the initially disappointed expectations? Allow me to explain. I love Starfield because it achieved something I haven't felt about a game since Red Dead Redemption 2. It made me care about its story and characters to the point of investing emotionally. It's been 8 years as of writing this since Red Dead 2, and it's been a long void without caring about the story of a single game I've played since then. Starfield is the first game to break that cold streak, and it achieved something unparalleled for gaming. First, since I don't want to glaze without tempering some real criticisms, yes, Todd lied to us about seamless travel until just shortly before the game's release. That hurt the game's image, truly. But if we can forgive the absence of true seamless atmosphere to orbit travel, then here's what Starfield achieved for me. It made me care about the story and characters so much, I actually had feelings when the game ended. That's mind-blowing to me, because I've played dozens of games since Red Dead 2, but nothing has touched me since then. No story has hooked me like Starfield in those 8 long years of drought. The reason is because Starfield achieved something that games have long sought, but few ever achieve. It made my choices matter, in a way that genuinely changed how I viewed the game. So, let's start there. I was like most people who bounced off Starfield initially. I thought, if I can't take off from atmosphere, what is even the point? Third person felt weird at first, and the story and opening of the game are painfully slow to start. Those are some real criticisms. The game is not perfect. Some of its aesthetics are kind of boring where they could have experimented. Leveling is frustratingly slow for a Bethesda title, and laser sights don't align to the reticule, rendering them useless in third person. Those all come to mind for why I bounced off the game at first. Then, someone argued me into giving the game a chance since it's had about 2 years of updates. They explained, it's not Starfield's fault it has no atmospheric takeoff, because no game does, not even No Man's Sky or Star Citizen. Then I thought, damn, okay, well, let's see what the game does do. If you can forgive the sin of no takeoff, then Starfield does everything else right a space game needs to do. The recent Free Lanes update made travel between planets possible, and intersolar travel is a dream to play. But what really won me over is the promise that my choices would matter, because they did, and beautifully so. Allow me to explain. Starfield has a brilliant story. I'm going to say, since Obsidian made New Vegas, Starfield is Bethesda's best story to date. It's my favorite because it actually matters. The characters are actually interesting. Conversations felt important. What I said felt like it actually mattered and changed things. My actions felt like they had real consequences, because they did. So, my theory is, most people bounced off Starfield's story because they either didn't figure it out or didn't play long enough to realize what was even happening. So what is Starfield's story that the public sees? On paper, you're a spacefarer who ends up finding an artifact that brings you into the orbit of an organization called Constellation, after this artifact gives you a vision. Constellation's run by Sarah Morgan. This is important. My spacefarer fell in love with Sarah Morgan at first sight in my roleplay. This is important. Sarah Morgan ingratiates the spacefarer to Constellation and invites us to join her cause. We agree and set out to find artifacts for a while, falling in love along the way. This is important. Why? Because this single choice at the beginning of my game to pursue Sarah Morgan as a romance
would become the foundation of my final choice in the game, where the entire game's themes and symbols all culminate in the greatest boss fight I've played since the Demon of Hatred on Demon Bell mode in Sekiro. Let me spoil the true story of Starfield for you, while I explain why this game is goddamn brilliant and we owe it an apology.
I'll be spoiling Starfield's story. In my game's first playthrough, I saved Sam Coe on the Eye, and Sarah Morgan died fighting for Constellation. This is important, because by saving Sam, my spacefarer lost the love of her life. The search for artifacts was no longer about discovery, it was about avenging the woman I lost. So when I chased the hunter and fought him, I escaped after I realized I couldn't kill him. In orbit, he tracks me down and I expect a fight. Instead, he gives me his gun. I thought, what? Why? You just tried to kill me and the woman I love is dead. Why are you giving me a gun? Why is this important? Because before this, on Neon, I brought Sarah Morgan on the deal with Walter to secure an artifact. In the deal, if you spare the thief, then Sarah will chastise you either way. If you let him go, she dislikes it, but even if you give him to the law, she still gets mad at you. She didn't want him to live, and she wanted you to be the one to kill him. This is important. Musgrove, the thief, disrespected Sarah, and she wanted retribution under a moral guise. Walter begs you not to kill Musgrove, and sparing either displeases Sarah. Why is this important? Because it's the entire secret conflict of Starfield in miniature. Call this the Musgrove butterfly effect. What happens is that Sarah Morgan has two responses to two different events. If you chastise Walter's wife, Sarah wants you to grandstand on her behalf, and if you don't, she gets pissed. Sarah is angry you won't criticize the rich into guilty charity, yet the moment a CEO tells you to kill a street rat thief, she's more than happy to oblige because that thief disrespected her. This striking contradiction is hypocritical, because Sarah is a classist elitist who believes she can decide the destiny of someone less fortunate. This is important because it is absolutely intentional. Sarah's hypocrisy isn't a writing inconsistency, it's a lethal clue to the true story of why this mission on Neon is the entire conflict in miniature. The true story of Starfield is that, millions of years ago in a previous universe, the spacefarer met Sarah Morgan and fell in love at first sight. This is important because this Sarah Morgan also fell in love with the spacefarer. However, at the critical split in their timelines, the spacefarer one was still chose to go up to save Sam on the Eye, but dies in the process. Meaning, the Sarah Morgan of that time goes on to the artifact unification process, achieving unity. She becomes starborn, torn by the memory of losing the one she loves. She decides that the artifacts are too dangerous to allow anyone to use, since their experimentation destroyed Earth. She begins secretly manipulating other Starborn to her cause, forming an army that hides the artifacts until Sarah has decided if the person is a worthy Starborn. In other words, the only people Sarah allows to stop this are people she knows she can manipulate. This forces us to ask a dark and serious question. Why did the hunter give you a gun after you escape him? Because this is where you must understand something deeply intimate about the hunter. After the death of Sarah Morgan and your ascent into escape, the hunter gives you his gun because, to him, you did something fascinating. You invented novelty by escaping him, because in millions of attempts you never have. This first time is the first time he's seen you escape his grasp, so out of respect, he gives you his gun. Why is this important? Because to the hunter, you just gave him a sign, and he doesn't get many of those anymore. We're left with more questions than answers. I spent the night mourning on Enceladus, watching Saturn in the sky as the sun rose on the world without Sarah. I wondered what to do. If only there was an easy choice.
If you asked most people who did beat Starfield who the main enemy or antagonist is, they'd tell you it's the Hunter. And yes, of course, the Hunter is a psychopathic, murdering, nihilistic villain who views people as disposable tools at best and plasticine to blow apart for fun at worst. But why? No one ever thinks to ask, why? Why is this Starborn a nihilistic murderer who revels in death and destruction? Because he's the last Terran. He's seen this cycle play out millions of times without a single iota of hope it might ever end. He's trapped by you and the emissary in a war he did not start but must finish. And God damn it, you are the only one who can deliver him there, and you must. Not just for him, you must do it for the woman you love, and most importantly, you must do it for yourself. You must deliver the Hunter to fight the emissary at the end of the game. It is the only true decision you must make. You must!
Hereupon is the hidden story of Starfield. The Hunter is Keeper Achilles. Except Keeper Achilles is who the Hunter will eventually become. But how does he get there? How does he find peace and purpose after endless cycles of nihilistic violence? Where is his redemption? It's in the game, and you can achieve it and the first time you play it. So how does Keeper Achilles come out of the Hunter? Simple. We inspire him, redeem him, and bring him out of his nihilism by convincing the woman we love to cease enslaving us to a cycle of violence she started. Sarah Morgan is the true villain of Starfield. Why is the Hunter impressed that you survive? Because in his universes, plural, your survival in your universe always equates to the emissary in his. Because your death is what motivates Sarah Morgan to gatekeep the artifacts. Here's why we ask this next. Why isn't there a Starborn spacefarer until the end? Because Sarah never let you become one until she deemed it so. You are the first true spacefarer to escape her cycle. At any given point, Sarah could have swooped down and explained everything. Instead, she gatekeeps the truth, and the Hunter is the one who reveals this to you. The Hunter denotes this hypocrisy at every juncture. You can meet both he and the emissary. The first time she reveals she is Sarah Morgan. This is actually an emotional manipulation. She wants to connive you into serving her, so that even if you finally become Starborn, it'll be under her rules and manipulation of influence. The Hunter is the one arguing for your freedom. That is why he gives you his gun, because he sees you are the one who can potentially break his cycle and free him. Here's how my game went. When the conversation became between the Hunter and emissary about who I would help find the rest of the artifacts, I went to go think about it by watching sunrise on Enceladus again. I thought about it this way. On Neon, all that time ago, I saw who Sarah really is. A gatekeeping classist who manipulates others into her dirty work and gets mad when they resist. That remained true as she became the emissary in her universe. Remembering this is what I decided to use as my basis to side with the Hunter. Why? Because I thought, if Sarah is still a manipulating hypocrite, I cannot trust the emissary, because she is the Sarah who I remember chastising my sparing a life. This is entirely intentional. The next time you meet the Hunter and emissary is after she informs you that the artifacts destroyed the Earth. She uses this as the basis of her claim they must be gatekept, so you should side with her and not the Hunter. Most people do. So why didn't I? Because he directly calls out her hypocrisy in that moment. I thought, yes, this man is a psychopath, but he's been completely honest about unity for every time I've won his respect. And Sarah has kept every truth from me every step.
I sided with the hunter. This ended up being the right choice. Why? I specialized only in a few stats that ended up being all I need: full medicine and full charisma. This ended up essential to completing the true redemption arc of the hunter, because as a test of my loyalty, he asks me to kill Keeper Achilles. I do not want to kill Achilles, so I go to warn him to leave. I beg him on faith to take it as true, and he does. I save Achilles and lie to the hunter that I slipped him a poison in his sleep using my medicine skill with a convincing lie that even impressed him. Why is this important? Because Achilles is the man who started the religion he himself preaches, without anyone knowing it. Because he is the traveler, as the hunter reformed.
The man in the story was cruel. Do you know why he was cruel? You must feel what he feels, understand his pain, accept it, and deliver it not back upon him.
So how does my story end on my first playthrough? Basically, I realized that Sarah had manipulated me into serving her as the emissary for her cycles so she could always go through Unity. My death became the constant she was willing to go through uncountable amounts of times to secure the power over the artifacts. The hunter and I have a united enemy, a joint reason to stop her, and we roll up on the final temple as Ryder dies. We slay her Starborn and track her down to the final artifact. She stands before me, and the final piece's arrival. She says only one thing.
I know you're not the person I lost all those universes ago, but my heart still breaks just the same.
I am given two options. At first, I judge her harshly, hoping it will condemn her into guilt. But this does not work, because she is Starborn. I must find another way.
My purpose is higher than myself. Something you don't seem to understand.
So I appeal to her heart.
I see so much of the person I knew in you as well.
I tell her I am still the person she loved all those cycles ago, and if she knows that's true, then she knows she can trust me with the final artifacts. She says she recognizes the person she loves in me. I tell her, it's my right to become Starborn after what I figured out what you did to me. She realizes that yes, this is the other side of her universe, and it's the one of me who survived. She cannot kill me without killing the one she loves who survived.
True. By that measure, you are a success. Very well. If there is even a faint glimmer of the same person I knew, I will honor their wishes. Here. Now go.
I don't know how you managed to do that. You got a real future in used starship sales.
She relents, gives my artifacts, and leaves. I enter Unity. Why is this important? Because, to the hunter, he just watched a slave of the cycle he happily murdered millions of times save him from that cycle and stop the person he loves from killing the other side of her universe. And this is how the power of love, in a single conversation, stops a million-cycle-long war that enslaved the multiverse. So I am allowed at last to break the cycle and become Starborn. I do. I disassemble into the multiverse, and inspired by my liberty, the hunter will go to become Keeper Achilles after his many journeys through the new branch of the multiverse. I saved the woman I love, not just by sparing her life, but by redeeming her soul.
and by consequence, started the new journey of an entirely new branch of the multiverse. Because I played all that. It wasn't just a scripted cutscene. It wasn't a directed sequence of cinematics. It was all just failure and success probabilities compounding until I discovered the truth and used it to save the woman I love from a cycle of never-ending violence. That is why Starfield is beautiful, why it's my favorite Bethesda game, and I am so glad I gave it another chance. And I implore you all to do the same too. If you can forgive the fantasy of atmospheric escape into orbit's absence, then Starfield offers you an amazing game. Bethesda's best story to date, too. I applaud the writers of this game because the amount of quantum mechanical shenanigans they got right is mind-blowing. While the game does hand-wave a lot of its science, the science that is there is hard many worlds theories of quantum mechanics. The game is basically a serious fatal blow to Copenhagen theory because it shows the potential reality of a multiverse in mind-blowing fashion, where the power of love unironically saves the day entirely in gameplay I could have failed at any point. Mind-blowing stuff. I love this game.
The most brilliant thing about all of this is the foreshadowing. The entire game is setting you up for the reveal that your battle with the emissary and hunter isn't about who is right. It's about why you've all been wrong, and for millions of cycles. And if you follow this foreshadowing, listen to the religions of the game and people explaining them, it actually tells you how to achieve this all on your first playthrough of the game. Which I did. I had no idea that the game would unfold for me the way it did. How is this all provable? Essentially comes down to two crazy ideas in quantum mechanics called many worlds and superdeterminism. What many worlds says is you made every choice you could have made in your entire life, every way you could have made it in the multiverse. Superdeterminism says everything you ever did, as all decisions, is already done throughout the block unit of space-time we call the fourth dimension. So, combining these two facts, we arrive at the conclusion of the Musgrove butterfly effect. A single act of compassion reveals of the hypocrisy of an elitist who will later use us as a slave to achieve incredible power. And by understanding this, we refuse to become her eternal slave, liberating both herself and her nemesis from the cycle of their war, by heeding the compassionate love of the one she used to love, pleading peace. And this moment of love and understanding is so completely powerful, it moves the world's biggest nihilistic atheist to conclude love is real, and so is God. Because only God could have made a love so true, it would outlast the cycle imprisoning the multiverse to a death spiral cycle that has no ending.
Do you know why he was cruel? You must feel what he feels, understand his pain, accept it, and deliver it not back upon him.
This man then goes on to use his starborn powers to found a religion that teaches peace for unity through love and compassion in the name of God. That is the true story of Starfield. And you have to achieve it on your first playthrough, or none of it is true. Because it's only true if you had no idea it would or could happen. Like me. I never beat Starfield before, and I avoided spoilers. For me, the game was a revelatory mystery about the nature of love, redemption, and choice as a power that can change the universe, even if it's just such a tiny way that no one will ever notice. Like sparing a life others think has no value, or forgiving someone I have every reason to hate, or letting go of vengeance when I have every right to take it.
choosing love and forgiveness when hatred says pull the trigger. Instead, telling the truth and saving our souls by doing so. I am Jainan, who fought the great serpent and turned the unbeliever into the pilgrim, so he could found the universum sanctum that would inspire me to practice love and compassion to even the cruel who hate me. Because only by doing so did I realize I was trapped in a cycle surrounding the denial of my destiny. So we conclude on the final truth of the conspiracy of constellation. In the first universe of the cycle, the spacefarer meets Sarah Morgan. They fall in love instantly. Sarah Morgan dies in the spacefarer's universe, defending Constellation, because the farer chose to save Sam Cohen on the Eye. In Sarah's universe, the farer dies defending Sam. Sarah, heartbroken, goes on to become Starborn, the emissary. Through grief, decides to gatekeep the artifacts from humanity, concluding they're too dangerous since they directly led to your death, the one she loves. This is because you are the exact opposite side of her universe. You are the one she loves who survived, and thus must go on to become Starborn to mirror her becoming the emissary. How? Because she is the Sarah Morgan you loved who died. Only, she didn't in her world. Thus, she became the emissary, where you died in her world. Mirror images, symmetrically aligned, opposite universes. This is why she forgives my spacefarer, because she realizes, as I tell her, if I am the opposite of her universe, then killing me for the artifacts is killing the very person she loved as motivation for keeping the artifacts. I tell her it's my right to unity, and she must acknowledge that is the only way to break the cycle. She agrees and gives me my artifacts and leaves. The hunter is so moved he believes in God again. This all depends on us realizing Sarah has a hypocritical morality and is willing to turn us into her eternal slave to keep the artifacts out of our hands. She's been preventing us from becoming Starborn for untold cycles. And the hunter works with us because, finally, Jainan is rising up against the great serpent to end the cycle not through killing, but through real unity. That's Starfield. It's a beautiful game about the power of love's ability to end vicious cycles.
In the end, I think Starfield is brilliant, because the first universe to start this cycle, you, the emissary, and the hunter are all trapped in, is ended by the last universe that perfectly mirrors the first. So I am the lover Sarah Morgan lost, and Sarah Morgan is the lover I lost, who became the emissary. This frees the multiverse from the war of the great serpent and the unbeliever by uniting them with Jainan. Superdeterminism is satisfied because the universe that began all this is perfectly mirrored by the universe that ended it. The story is essentially, what if you lost the person you loved, found their alternate self, and redeemed them from a life of tyranny? That's why this is my favorite game.